In the fading light of Willow Bend, a small town tucked in the hills of upstate New York, Heart's Haven stood on the brink of collapse, its neon sign flickering like a dying star. The restaurant, once a bustling hub of laughter and clinking plates, now echoed with the silence of unpaid bills and empty tables. Ethan Carter, 38, heir to the Carter real estate empire, hosted a gala in the dimly lit dining hall, a last-ditch effort to draw investors. Crystal chandeliers cast golden light over silk-clad guests, their voices a low hum of wealth and indifference. Ethan, sharp in a tailored navy suit, his green eyes scanning the crowd, pulled a yellowed letter from his jacket, its edges crumbling. Ink faded into ghostly script. With a wry smile, he raised it to the room. "Solve this letter, and the restaurant's key is yours," he announced. Laughter rippled through the crowd. Historians, scholars, even AI had failed to decipher the cryptic symbols of his grandfather Henry Carter's note. It was a billionaire's jest, nothing more. Nora James, 29, stood at the room's edge, a waitress balancing a tray of champagne flutes, her navy uniform blending into the shadows. Her hazel eyes locked onto the letter, its symbols stirring a memory she'd buried deep. They were the same ones her grandmother, Clara, had taught her in their cramped Buffalo apartment, a secret language passed down through generations, born in the struggles of their ancestors, immigrants who'd carved out lives in America's margins. Clara called it the tongue of survivors, a script used to hide messages during times of persecution. Nora's heart thudded. She wasn't supposed to be here, not like this, not noticed. Her life was a patchwork of survival, waitressing at Heart's Haven, tutoring kids in the evenings, cleaning offices at dawn, all to pay for her mother Lila's hospital bills. Lila's lungs were failing, each breath a battle, each bill a weight Nora carried alone. She'd dropped out of college 3 years ago, her linguistics degree abandoned when her scholarship dried up. Clara's lessons, those late-night sessions with faded journals and whispered stories, felt like relics of a life she couldn't afford to dream about. But this letter, it was a spark in the dark. Her hands shook as she set her tray down. She thought of Lila, pale and fragile in her hospital bed, whispering, "You're stronger than you know, Nora." The memory brought a lump to her throat. Lila had raised her single-handedly after Nora's father left when she was 5, disappearing into the night with promises of return that never came. Nora had watched her mother work 2 jobs, her hands calloused, her eyes weary, but always with a smile for her daughter. "We're fighters, us James women," Lila would say, hugging Nora tight. But now Lila was the one fighting for every breath, and Nora felt the weight of it crushing her. Tears pricked her eyes as she recalled the day Lila's diagnosis came. COPD, the doctor said, from years of factory smoke and second-hand stress. Nora had promised then to make things right, to find a way to pay for the treatments, to give her mother the peace she deserved. Clara's words echoed, "These letters are our armor. They'll outlast empires." Nora stepped forward, her shoes scuffing the polished floor. "Excuse me, Mr. Carter," she said, her voice slicing through the murmurs. Heads turned. A woman in a velvet gown snickered, her diamond earrings glinting. A man by the bar muttered, "The help?" Another guest, flushed with wine, tossed his drink at her, the cold liquid splashing across her face and collar. "Know your place, sweetheart," he slurred. The room gasped, some laughing, others shifting uncomfortably. Nora stood still, jaw tight, water dripping from her chin, her eyes burning into Ethan's. Clara's words echoed, "They'll try to make you small." "Nora, don't let them." She straightened, her voice steady. Though her heart ached with the humiliation, "I can read it." The laughter didn't stop. It grew like a wave crashing over her. A middle-aged woman in an emerald dress leaned toward her friend, loud enough for Nora to hear. "Look at her, thinking she's some kind of genius. Probably can't even read English properly." Her friend giggled, adding, "Yeah, go back to serving drinks, honey. This isn't your fairy tale." A young man in a tuxedo, his tie loose, pointed at her soaked uniform. "Hey, waitress, is that your new look? Wine-stained chic? Suits you, trashy and desperate." The room erupted in chuckles. Nora's cheeks burned, the cold liquid seeping into her skin like a brand. She thought of Clara, who'd faced worse, factory bosses calling her names, neighbors whispering about her foreign ways. "Stand tall, Nora. Their words are wind." But the wind stung. An older gentleman, balding and red-nosed, stepped closer, his breath reeking of scotch. "What, you think you're special?" I've seen girls like you, trying to climb up by batting your eyes. Get back to the kitchen where you belong." A woman nearby cackled, "Or maybe she's hallucinating from all that cheap perfume she's wearing. Smells like desperation." Nora's throat tightened, her vision blurring with unshed tears. She remembered Lila's face when creditors called, the way she'd hold Nora close and say, "Don't listen to them, baby. You are worth more than gold." But here, in this room of privilege, she felt like nothing. A group of young socialites clustered together, one saying, "Oh my God, is this a prank? Like, who let the maid in?" Another added, "Seriously, girl, stick to mopping floors. Reading ancient letters. That's for people with actual education." The mockery hit like punches, each word chipping away at her resolve. Nora's hands clenched, her nails digging into her palms. She thought of the nights she'd studied by flashlight, dreaming of a life beyond survival, only to be reminded she was just the help. A man in the back shouted, "Hey, if she can read that, I'll eat my shoe." "Probably thinks it's a grocery list." Laughter boomed. Nora's heart pounded, the humiliation afire in her chest. But she lifted her chin, refusing to break. "I can read it," she repeated, her voice stronger, echoing Clara's unyielding spirit. Ethan descended from the stage, the crowd parting reluctantly. He handed her the letter, his expression a mix of curiosity and skepticism. The paper felt heavy, like it carried a century's worth of secrets. Nora's voice didn't waver as she read, "My son, if you hold this, know I've hidden a treasure where the sun sets and the stars awaken." Gasps rippled through the room. The letter spoke of a map, buried near an old chapel on Willow Bend's outskirts, tied to a secret Henry Carter had guarded. The room fell silent. Ethan's smile faded. "No one's ever read a word of this," he said, stunned. Nora met his gaze, her chin lifting. Tears she wouldn't let fall burning behind her eyes. "You didn't ask the right people." That night Nora sat in her one-bedroom apartment, the letter's words searing her mind. The radiator clanked, the only sound besides the distant hum of Willow Bend streets. Her kitchen table was cluttered with medical bills, each one a reminder of Lila's fight. Nora had grown up in Buffalo's roughest corners, where rent was a monthly gamble and trust was a luxury. At 16, she dodged debt collectors who knocked too loudly, learned to spot trouble in a glance. She'd been top of her class at SUNY Buffalo, dreaming of decoding ancient scripts at the Metropolitan Museum, until Lila's diagnosis stole her future. Now at 29, she was a survivor, not a scholar. But Clara's journal, tucked in a wooden box under her bed, held more than memories. It held the script, the same one on Ethan's letter. She opened it, tracing the symbols. A memory surfaced, 10 years old, curled up on Clara's couch, the glow of a single candle. Clara's hands, rough from years of factory work, guided Nora's fingers over the symbols. "This is our legacy, Nora," Clara had said, her eyes misty with unshed tears. "Not money, but truth. It's stronger than steel." Nora had laughed, thinking it was a game, but Clara's voice had cracked, revealing the pain behind the lesson. "My mother taught me this when we lost everything," Clara had confessed, her hand trembling. "When your great-grandfather died in that accident, we had nothing but these words to hold us together." Nora's young heart had ached for Clara then, hugging her tight, feeling the fragility in her grandmother's embrace. Now it felt like fate, a thread connecting her to something larger than her struggles. Ethan knocked on her door at midnight, his polished demeanor gone, replaced by a worn sweater and tired eyes. "I need to know what else that letter says," he said. Nora hesitated. She didn't trust men like Ethan, born into wealth, blind to the grind of her world. But his voice held a crack, a hunger for answers she recognized, a loneliness that mirrored her own. She nodded, grabbing her coat. They drove to Willow Bend's edge, where an old stone chapel stood, its spire leaning under time's weight. The air smelled of pine and damp earth. Under moonlight, they found a carved stone beneath an oak tree, and beneath it a rusted tin box. Inside was another letter, its ink fresher but still old, with a single line. "The treasure opens only when two hearts stand together." Nora frowned, her mind racing. "Two hearts?" Ethan shook his head. "I don't know either." As they sat by the chapel, Nora shared more about Clara, her voice breaking as she recalled her grandmother's last days, holding her hand in the hospice. Clara whispering, "Don't forget the words. Nora, they'll guide you home." Tears slipped down Nora's cheeks, and Ethan, moved by her vulnerability, placed a hand on her shoulder, his touch gentle, unexpected. "I'm sorry," he said, his own eyes glistening. "I know what it's like to lose someone who held your world together." Back at Heart's Haven, whispers of their discovery reached Ethan's uncle, Victor, a man with sharp eyes and sharper ambitions. Victor had built his own wealth under the Carter name, but he craved control of the empire. He saw Nora as a threat, a nobody who could unravel his plans. He sent men to tail them, their shadows lurking in Willow Bend's quiet streets. Nora sensed them first, her instincts honed from years of dodging trouble in Buffalo's alleys. She'd learned to walk fast, to check corners, to trust her gut. "Someone doesn't want us to find it," she told Ethan, her voice low, fear mixing with determination. At her apartment, Nora pulled out Clara's wooden box. Inside was a locket, etched with a star and crescent moon, and a story Clara used to tell, about her grandparents, laborers on the Carter estate in the 1940s, who'd helped Henry build his fortune but were erased from his legacy. "Our families are connected," Nora said, her breath catching. She remembered Clara's stories of her great-grandmother, Rose, a seamstress who'd worked for Henry, whispering secrets in the script to protect her family. Clara had kept those secrets, teaching Nora the script to preserve their truth, but the memories brought pain. Clara's tears when she spoke of Rose's hardships, the way her voice broke recalling the family's poverty, the nights they went hungry. Nora's eyes filled with tears. "She gave everything for us," she whispered, clutching the journal to her chest. Ethan listened, his face shifting. He'd grown up idolizing Henry, a titan of industry who'd turned Willow Bend into a hub of wealth. But there were gaps in the stories. Henry's late-night meetings, locked drawers, a sadness in his eyes Ethan never understood. He recalled a memory, 8 years old, sneaking into Henry's study, finding a sketch of the star and crescent symbol on a napkin, Henry's hands trembling as he tucked it away. "What didn't you tell me?" Ethan muttered half to himself. He opened up, his voice raw. "My father died when I was 12. Henry raised me, but he was distant, always working. I thought it was ambition. Now I see it was guilt." Ethan's eyes welled up, the confession breaking a wall he'd built around his heart. Nora reached out, her hand on his, a silent comfort that spoke volumes. The next clue led to a pond in the woods, where fireflies danced under a velvet sky. Beneath a willow's roots they found another box, holding a locket identical to Nora's with a faded photograph. Clara, young and radiant, beside Henry Carter, their smiles soft but guarded. The letter was brief. "The treasure lies where the past was locked away in the house of forgotten promises." Nora's heart raced. She thought of Lila, who'd always said Clara carried a secret heavier than the world. Nora had spent her life piecing it together, working nights to pay for Lila's oxygen tanks, studying linguistics in stolen moments at the library, hoping to make sense of Clara's lessons. She'd failed college not for lack of talent, but because life didn't wait. This letter felt like a chance to reclaim what she'd lost. Tears streamed down her face as she imagined telling Lila, "I found it, Mom, Clara's truth." Ethan watched her, his confidence shaken. He'd grown up in mansions, private schools, a world where doors opened effortlessly. But Nora was different. Her strength was forged in fire, not inherited. He felt a pull toward her, not just admiration but something deeper, a warmth he hadn't known he needed. By the pond he brushed a strand of hair from her face, his fingers lingering. Nora froze, her eyes meeting his, tears glistening. "We're not here for that," she said softly, but her voice trembled, betraying a flicker of feeling. Ethan nodded, stepping back, but the air between them hummed with possibility. He shared his own pain. "I've spent years building walls, Nora, like Henry did, but seeing you fight, it makes me want to tear them down." Nora's heart softened, a spark of connection igniting amid the grief. The Carter Manor loomed at Willow Bend's edge, its walls crumbling, windows dark. Inside, dust coated everything, but the air buzzed with memory. In the attic they found a locked chest, its surface carved with the star and crescent. 2 keyholes stared back. Nora's locket opened to reveal a small ornate key. Ethan searched Henry's study, finding a hidden drawer with a matching key. Together they turned the locks. The chest creaked open, revealing gold coins, jewels, and a leather-bound diary. Henry's diary was a confession. Shady land deals, bribes to officials, a real estate empire built on lies. But it also told of his love for Clara, a seamstress's daughter, forbidden by his family's wealth and status. They'd been forced apart, their bond buried to protect the Carter name. The treasure was proof of their truth, hidden to shield Clara's family from retaliation. Nora's hands shook as she read. "They loved each other," she whispered, tears falling onto the pages. Ethan's jaw tightened. "And my family erased her." But the diary revealed more darker secrets. Henry had been involved in a scandal in the 1950s, a land grab that displaced dozens of Willow Bend families, including Clara's. He'd paid bribes to cover it up, but the guilt haunted him. Worse, Ethan found a letter mentioning a tragedy. Clara's brother, Eli, had died in a construction accident on a Carter project, and Henry had silenced the truth, paying off Eli's family to leave town. Ethan's stomach churned. "My grandfather wasn't just a businessman," he said, his voice breaking. He was a coward. Tears streamed down his face as he read about Eli, a young man with dreams cut short by Henry's negligence. Ethan collapsed into a chair, sobbing. "I've lived off this blood money," he whispered. Nora knelt beside him, wrapping her arms around him. "It's not your fault," she said, her own tears flowing. "But we can make it right." Nora read on, her voice steady despite the pain. Eli's death wasn't an accident. Henry's negligence had caused a collapse, and he'd buried the evidence to save his empire. Clara had known, but she'd stayed silent, protecting her family with the script, encoding their pain in symbols only they understood. "She didn't just teach me a language," Nora said, her voice cracking. "She taught me how to survive." She thought of Clara's last words, whispered in the hospice. "Forgive, but remember. Nora, that's how we heal." The weight of it all, Clara's sacrifice. Lila's illness, her own lost dreams, crashed over her, and she wept, Ethan holding her close, their shared grief forging a bond unbreakable. Victor's men grew bolder. One night a car followed Nora home, its headlights too close. She ducked into an alley, heart pounding, Clara's voice in her head. "Move like the wind. Nora, they can't catch what they can't see." She'd learned that lesson young, dodging trouble in Buffalo's streets, where she'd once outrun a mugger with nothing but instinct and speed. But the fear lingered, a reminder of her vulnerability. Ethan hired security, but Nora refused to hide. "This is my story too," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. They took the diary to Sarah Mitchell, a lawyer who'd battled corporate greed for decades. Sarah's eyes gleamed. "This could destroy Victor," she said, "but it'll cost you." Nora visited Lila the next day, holding her mother's hand as she slept, the beeps of machines a constant reminder of time slipping away. "I'm doing this for you, Mom," Nora whispered, tears falling. "For Clara, for all of us." Lila stirred, her eyes opening weakly. "I'm proud of you, baby," she said, her voice a rasp. "Don't let the pain break you. Let it build you." Nora nodded, her heart swelling with love and sorrow. Nora and Ethan went public at Heart's Haven. Nora stood at the podium, her voice clear but laced with emotion. "This isn't about gold. It's about truth. My grandmother and Ethan's grandfather built something real, and it was stolen. We're taking it back." Cameras flashed. The diary's secrets, Victor's embezzlement, Henry's crimes hit the headlines. Victor was arrested, charged with fraud and conspiracy. But the fight wasn't over. Victor's allies leaked stories, painting Nora as a gold digger. One article dug into her past, calling her a failed scholar from the wrong side of the tracks. Nora read it in the hospital, Lila's hand in hers. "They don't know you," Lila said, squeezing weakly. Nora's tears fell. "I'm tired, Mom, tired of fighting." Lila smiled faintly. "That's when you fight harder. For Clara, for me." The words ignited Nora's resolve, but the emotional toll was heavy. She lay awake nights sobbing into her pillow, questioning if it was worth it. A letter arrived at the restaurant, slipped under the door, sealed with a star and crescent. It read, "The treasure was only the beginning. Find the vault where the heart still beats." Nora showed it to Ethan, who frowned. "Another clue." Nora nodded, her eyes misty. Clara said truth doesn't rest. They drove to Willow Bend's old library, its shelves sagging with forgotten books. The clue mentioned a heart that beats, and Nora recalled Clara's tales of a secret room where her grandparents met. They searched until dawn, tapping walls, moving shelves. A hollow sound led to a hidden panel. Behind it, a vault with a single keyhole. Their keys, pressed together, clicked. Inside were letters, dozens tied with red thread. Clara and Henry's love letters written over decades. Each one a piece of a life they couldn't live together. Nora read one aloud, her voice breaking. "My dearest Clara, every day without you is a shadow, but our love will light the way for those who come after." Tears streamed down her face. At the bottom, a will named Clara's family as co-owners of the Carter estate, erased by Victor's schemes. Nora's hands shook. "They tried to bury this," Ethan nodded, his eyes red. "But we found it." He pulled her into an embrace, their tears mingling, the weight of generations' pain lifting in that shared moment. Sarah filed the will in court. Victor's allies fought back, smearing Nora's name. She stood in the courtroom, her voice steady but her heart aching. "This isn't about money. It's about Clara's name, her love, her truth." The judge ruled in their favor. The estate was split, half to Ethan, half to Nora's family. Nora used her share to transform Hearts Haven into a network of community centers, funding scholarships, art programs, and a museum in Clara's name. Ethan stepped back from the Carter empire, his eyes on Nora as she led. "You're the heart of this," he said, his voice thick with emotion. Nora smiled through tears, touching Clara's locket. One night, Ethan brought coffee to her apartment, sitting beside her. Their shoulders brushed and neither moved. "What happens now?" Nora asked, her heart pounding. Ethan's voice was soft, vulnerable. "I want to find out with you. You've shown me what real strength is, Nora. I've been alone too long." Nora's tears fell as she leaned in, their lips meeting in a kiss, born of shared grief and hope. It was a beginning, fragile but real. Years later, Nora stood on a hill overlooking Willow Bend, Hearts Haven glowing below. Kids painted murals, artists performed, mothers planned gardens. Ethan joined her, hands in his pockets, their fingers intertwining. "Think they're watching?" he asked, nodding to the stars. Nora nodded, tears of joy in her eyes. Clara said truth shines. And it did, brighter than any treasure. This story is a testament to resilience, the power of hidden truths, and the courage to reclaim a legacy. Nora's journey proves that no matter how small you start, your voice can rewrite history.